Hello, 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 hello. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Am I audible? Am I audible to everyone? Hi, Tosif. Hi, Alka. Am I audible to everyone? Yes, we'll start Java today. Yes, we'll start coding. Yeah. So I hope there is no disturbance today, right? No echo, no disturbance. Everything is fine today. You can hear me properly, clearly. Okay, that's totally great. Yeah, amazing, amazing. Fine. So let's start where we left off yesterday. I hope everyone saw the link on Let's Upgrade community that I posted, right? So you people got the JDK. And the people who were asking me about running Java in mobile phones, I will suggest use an app instead of installing JDK and making your phone heavy. You people can use an app. I posted a link of JDK. I downloaded it for Windows and I uploaded it on my drive, and then I posted link on the community. So if you still don't have it, you can just go on the community. I have posted a link. You can download it from there and then install it. And for the people who wanted to run JDK in phone, I'll suggest not to do that. You can use there's an app called J Code. I feel J Studio, something like that. Wait, I'll check. Wait, just give me a second. I actually checked in the morning. So I saw 4 to 5 apps, but the best that I found was wait, it was which one? Yeah, it was J Studio. You people can use J Studio. That is a good app. So in there you can do all that core Java stuff. You can write your basic programs, you can save your files, and you can also download them and you can run them online. Yeah, so if you go on the Play Store or an App Store, you will find a lot of apps. Then you can just do it. Okay, Mohammed. Yeah, we can do it. We can do it. I'll show you how to run it with the command prompt so that you can also use Notepad++ or VS Code. But just for reducing the complexity of running it again and again, I'm using the thing that we downloaded yesterday, right? IntelliJ that I'm using. But I'll show you if you want. I'll show you how to run your commands using command prompt so that you can use VS Code, Notepad++, or a blank Notepad. That will be fine. Saeed, I explained it yesterday, right? About how to install JDK and how to install where to install it. Yes, you can use Eclipse. You people can use Eclipse. You people can use NetBeans if you know how to use it. That's totally fine. Not a problem at all. Use anything that you like. I'll also show you how to work without editor, so that if you don't have any editor, if your PC is slow, then also you can code it in Notepad or Notepad++, or you can download Sublime Text online. Fine. Yeah. From today you'll get assignments. From today you'll get assignments. Okay. Then I hope you people can see my screen properly. Let's start. Okay, so we installed IntelliJ yesterday, right? So again, I'll open it, and we also created a project. If you remember, we also created a project. Yes, you people will have class tomorrow. I feel Sunday there will be no class, but tomorrow you'll be having class. So I've just opened my IntelliJ. Yeah, hello, hello, yeah. Good to see you all again. Yes, you can use Eclipse. You can use Eclipse, not a problem. First, I'll explain few things, and then I'll show you how to code and run your code with command prompt, and then we'll get again back to IntelliJ. Yes, Saurabh will be explaining all these stuff, constructor and everything. Don't worry about it. Thank you, Sridhar. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm not installing it again. I'm running it. Fine, let's start. I think you might not be saving it, Ayushi. Maybe you're not saving it. Once you all whenever you change something in your code, you always have to compile it. If you don't compile it, it will show you the same output that was previously there. So you always have to compile it. Okay, should we start? Can you people see my screen? Yes, Said, I installed the ID yesterday. Yes, it was already installed in my PC. I just showed you how to install and where to get it. I'll check, Shreya, don't worry, I'll check. I feel there is a class tomorrow, don't worry. I'll check if I'm making some mistake or is there any problem. I'll check, don't worry. Yes, IntelliJ is free, Karthik. Okay, should we start? Okay, I'll just increase the font size a bit for you people, don't worry. So in this particular IntelliJ, if you want to increase the font size, you can just go to settings. You can just go to settings and it's a little slow. And then in that, you can just go to editor options. And from there, you can go to font. And you can increase the size from here. So right now it's 18. I'll just increase it to make, I think 20 is fine. Is this visible? Is this visible to everyone? Please tell me. Shreya, don't worry, I'll ask everyone, I'll ask. Is this font visible? Please tell me, everyone. Is this visible? Or should I increase a bit? I hope this is visible now. I think this is 22 is perfectly fine, right? Okay. Not clear. I think it's clear now, right? 23 best. Okay, let's make it 23. Fine. Final. Okay. I hope now it's fine. Okay. Perfect. So I'll just take what do you want me to repeat, Abhinav? Some more larger? I feel if I make it more larger, then it will be tough to read the code, right? If you're watching in phone, please watch it in portrait mode, please. I'll explain, don't worry, I'll explain. Yes, you can use Visual Studio Code. Fine, okay. So where we left off yesterday, we learned about classes and objects, right? So we got to know that a class is basically a group of related functions, right? A class is basically a group of related functions. And then if you want to call that functions, you have to create an object of the class. I hope you people remember this now. I hope you people remember this. You have to create the object of the class and then you can call that functions. And you also know that one single object holds only one instance. So if you want to make a different data, you have to create a new object, right? I hope you will remember yesterday's lecture, right? Hope everyone remembers it. I'll explain everything today. Don't worry. I'll explain this package in some time. Don't worry about it. So yesterday we created a project and by default we got one class. You can't call it, Saurabh. You can't call it. Don't worry. I'll explain everything. Please just let me speak. I'll explain everything. Yes, you can use Eclipse. Fine. So yesterday we created a project, right? And we got one class by default. That was the main class, right? So there was a class main. And inside that, we also have a function that is public static void main. Remember this thing, in every Java project, there is a main class, a single main class, a single main function actually. So in every Java project, a main class is a mandatory, a main function is a mandatory function because that function is the entry point of your program. So when you run your project, the JRE only tries to find out the main function. If main function is there, then only it will run because it runs only the main function. JRE only runs the main function or the main method, right? So you should always have a main method in your Java project. So everything that, every other thing that you create, like any other classes, any other functions, anything else, you have to call it inside the main because the main function is the only thing that is executed and main function is basically your entry point of the program. That is the only function that JRE executes. Anything else that you create outside main function, you have to call it inside the main function. Remember this thing. That's why main function is very, very important, and you cannot change the name because it is predefined. Because JRE, no, there's only one main, right? This is main class. Class name can be anything. That's not a problem. By default, I have named it main. Class name can be anything, but the function should be named main. Remember this thing, please, everyone. Remember. I'll also explain what is this void, static, and public, but don't worry about it right now. I'll explain in some time, today only. But remember, you have to have a main function because JRE only executes the main function. I hope it is understood now, right? I'll explain everything about this public, static, void, main. Don't worry. We'll build all the steps. Yes, I'll explain all that too. No, you cannot change it. You cannot change it in Java. I'll explain why. Don't worry. Just let's go step by step. Trust me, I'll explain you everything. Don't worry about it. Sai, don't worry. I'll explain what is this. Don't worry. You just have to get the enough information first to understand all these things. So please focus. I'll explain everything one by one. Please? Cool. So what I'm going to do today is first, I'll create one more class, right? I'll create one more class. So in my SRC, you can see in my SRC folder, there's a package that basically is a folder that is com.firstjava. That is my folder. And inside it, I have only one class that is main.java. Remember one thing, in Java, whatever is the name of the class should also be the name of the file. That is mandatory. Otherwise, it will not run. So always try to create only one class in one file, and the class name and the file name should always be the same. It is mandatory. Please remember this. Try to always create only one class in one file, and the class name and the file name should always be the same. These editors will help you. They will create it directly for you. But when you're not using an editor, let's say if you're using Notepad or Notepad++, then in that case, you have to remember everything, right? So let's create one more class today. So I can just right click on this SRC. So I'm just showing you how to create a new class. You can just go on new, and here you can see you have the option of Java class. So I'll again repeat it. Just right click on SRC, new, and then select Java class from here, right? And name it anything you want. So I'll just name it demo, right? And enter. And you can see it here now. You can see it here. But now the problem is my demo class just got outside the package, and I don't want that. So why we require to make a file in file? We are not creating a file in file. com.firstjava is a folder, and inside that there was main created. Not a problem, Savarish. I'll also explain you how to create a new project. Okay, what I'll do for now is, just for all the new people, I'll create one more project for you people so that you can see it from the start. This is the last time I'm gonna show you all these things. Please focus and just see it, and let me just explain you people. I'm again creating a new project. So what I'm doing is file. That is just a package. That just gives you namespace, a separation. So let's say if you have thousands of classes, you can separate them in multiple packages, right? So package is just a folder which holds related classes, right? Just like you create folders in your PC, right? If you have study material, you create study material. If you have let's say movies, you create a folder for movies just to separate all your files. That's why there are packages in Java. You create multiple packages to group related classes. Are you getting my point? So packages are nothing but folders which provides class with a namespace so that we can identify them easily. Is this clear? Is this clear, everyone? I hope it is clear. So I'm again showing you how to create a new project. Just focus, please. So again, file, new, project, right? It is working a little slow. Okay. Then again, you can just select Java here. Just move on with the next. And now here you have to select create project from template. So create project from template, and by default command line app will be selected, right? So you have to select this box. Remember this thing. And then next. And now you can name it. Name it anything. So I'm just going to name it, let's say, employee. So I'm just naming it as an employee. That's all. And I can just name it like the folder, the by default folder to com.employee, because I'm thinking of some project on employees in future. That's why I just named it employee. You can name it anything, right? And now we can just finish it. It will take a little time. It will create a project for you. I want to open it in this window only, not a new window. You got it? How to create a new project? I hope everyone is clear with this now. Right now, this editor is only for Java because this is specifically made for Java. This IntelliJ is specifically made for Java Aparna. Right now, you can see you have employee and you have all the folders like SRC and everything. Can you see it now? Can you see it? Perfect. And now in your SRC, you have the package that you created, com.employee, and then inside it, again, you have a main class, which has a main function that basically starts. That is the only function that executes. Is it clear now? Perfect. So let's create one more class, right? That will have some functions today. So again, right click on SRC, new. Okay, now the problem is if I'm creating it in SRC, it is going outside my package. But I want the new class to be in the same package where main class is. So I'll click on the package now. So right click, new, Java class. Remember this thing, I'm not clicking on SRC now, I'm clicking on the package. Right click, new, Java class. Now I can just name it demo, or I can just name it employee. Enter. Now you can see it. So the above line, the first line that here specifies which class this package belongs to. Remember this thing. The first line here, that is package com.employee, basically says which class this package belongs to. So it is saying that this employee class belongs to com.employee package. That's all this line does. So the first line, that is package and the package name, defines which class this package is in. I hope it is clear now what this first line says, right? Is everyone clear with this? Is everyone clear with this? Perfect. Now, as I said yesterday, like this is a package that I created. Just listen to me, please. So this com.employee is a package that I created, but there are a lot of inbuilt packages available already in Java that help you in writing code. So there are already a lot of inbuilt packages and inbuilt classes. So basically they have inbuilt functions that you can use to write Java code. So you're creating your own package in class, but there are already a lot of inbuilt classes and packages that help you to write Java code. Are we getting clear? So today we want to see all of them, a lot of them basically, not everyone, not everything, but a lot of them. Yes, there is a difference between a normal folder and a Java package. I'll explain it in a bit. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. Package basically provides you with a namespace. So there is a difference, but it's not a lot. It basically likes a folder. It basically is like a folder. That's all, Venkat. I'll explain what is the actual difference between a normal folder and a package. Don't worry about it. But just for right now, understand what is package. Yes, I'll explain everything that all the things that you can see here. Don't worry about anything. I'm just going step by step. Don't worry. If you want, you can remove this com. It's just like how you write your domain, just like www.google.com. So you have google.com, that is your domain. So it's just writing like a domain. So com.employee, so they have just made a naming convention that you have to use com.anything. Just like you have something.com. So it's just a naming convention. It doesn't do anything. It's just the naming convention. Just remember this, it's just a naming convention. That's all. Is it clear to everyone? Is it clear to everyone? Okay. So now, yes, you can have it. You can have it. I'll show everything. Don't worry. Yes, it will be case sensitive, Fatima, because we have named it like that. No, not at all. A single package can have 10 to 15 classes, like can have thousands of classes. So there's no connection between the package name and the class name. So don't worry about it, please. Fine. So remember one thing, like there are a lot of classes that we are going to use. There are a lot of inbuilt classes that we are going to use in future, right? There are a lot of inbuilt classes that we are going to use in future. And to use them, we have to import them. Remember one thing, to use them, we have to import them. but there is one package that is by default imported in all the Java classes that you create. Remember this thing. There is the by default package that is imported in all the Java classes that you create. That is java.lang. So there's a package named java.lang that is by default imported in every Java file that you create. Remember this thing. So even if you don't write it, even if you don't import it, even if you don't do anything, it is by default imported. And it gives some of the basic features like to help you in printing and all. Is it clear with that? Are we clear with it? So there is a package that is by default available in every Java class, that is java.lang. Shivani, there is no like importance of that com. It's just a naming convention that is how they have made it, that you have to use it. No path, it's not important. It's not important. Fine. So as I said, there's a by default package that is by default imported in every Java class so that you can use some basic features. And the package name is java.lang. And it gives you a class named system. And you can use that class to call a function that will help you in printing something on the console. I'll explain everything, Naneshwar. Don't worry, don't worry. Please, everyone seeing everything here, I'll explain everything. I'm just going step by step. Please see. Fine? Okay, let's start. So, to print anything, there is a class available that is known as system. So, there's a class named system. You can see, I have named it system, and see from which package it is coming from, java.lang, right? Java.lang. And it has a property with it related to it. I will explain you what is the property. Just see how to print. For now, just see how to print. Out dot. If I explain everything first, you will not get it because there are still a lot of things that you don't know. So please just check it out first. And there's a function with it that is println. Just like this. So there is a class named system which has a property that is out and which is the function println. So this is the thing that you will use to print anything. It's same as cout or printf from C or cout from C++. So if you want to print anything, you have to use system.out.println in Java. Remember this thing. I'll explain each and every part of it in some time when you understand what classes and properties actually are. So just please first work with it, right? So if you want to print anything in Java, this is the function that you use, system.out.println. And now to print any string, print any alphabetical string, you have to use double quotes. In Java, whenever you are working with string, you have to use double quotes. So you can write anything in double quotes. So this is a new Java program. And now you can just save it. You have to always save it. Whenever you do any change, you have to save it. Okay, save it. And now to run a program in IntelliJ, there's a run button here, as you can see. There is just a run button here, right? Run. So you can just click on it, and that's all. Will take a little time, build the project and run it for you. Single quotes is for characters part. Single quote is for characters. So now it's taking a little time to build the project. Once it is built, it will run for you. Don't worry, everyone. I'll explain each and every thing that is written here. Don't worry about it. Just let me go step by step. I'll explain. I'll make sure everything is explained to you. Now, as you can see, there's an inbuilt terminal IntelliJ, and here's your output. See this? For saving, you just have to use Control S. Ashley, just Control S. Yes, Madhur, package declaration is important. So you have to specify the package name in which your class is. So you can see the output, right? It was very, very easy to print anything. It just gives you a namespace, Ashley. That's all. It just gives you a namespace. Don't worry about anything. Are we clear with this? Are we clear with printing at least? Now I'll explain what each and every component is here. Don't worry. Exit code 0 basically means if you press 0, it will exit the terminal. That's all. After saving, you have to click on run. It will not by default run. Yes, we can do that. I'll just tell everything. Don't worry. When you click on the run button, it compiles and executes for you. It does both the things. In IntelliJ, it does both the things for you. Don't worry about it. It does both. It compiles and runs both the things. Don't worry. Fine. Okay. Now let's move ahead. Now there is one very important topic that I want to discuss with you, and after that I'll explain everything. So, as we talked yesterday about getting data from user, right? Getting data from user and storing it in some database, or we also talked about displaying data, right? Please don't spam Nesargi, please don't spam the chat, please. So as you remember, yesterday we talked about getting data from user and displaying data to user, right? So, Monica, don't worry, please wait everyone, I'll explain everything. That's what I'm saying, everyone please wait. So yesterday we discussed about getting data from user and storing it in database, or basically displaying data to the user, right? So now in every programming language, right, if you want to store data, if you want to get data from user, then basically you have to store it somewhere. Or even if you want to display the data, you have to store it somewhere, right? So in any programming language, whenever you want to deal with data, like you want to take it from user or you want to display it to the user, you require some kind of memory to store it temporarily. You at least require some kind of memory to store it temporarily, right? So in all of the programming languages, there is concept of variables, which basically helps you to store data temporarily, so that you can take data from user or you can display data. Like in text file path, you can store data permanently. Throughout the program, if you want to use the data, so you have to store it somewhere temporarily, so that inside the program you can use it again and again, or you can just take it from user and use it temporarily. So for that case, you have a concept of variables, and it is available in every programming language, and it is one of the most important things, because in a programming language, while doing programming, you take a lot of data from user, or you require a lot of data, you work with a lot of data, and that's why you require something called as a variable. Is it clear with that? So now, what is a variable? Variable is nothing but a temporary memory location. Variable is nothing but a temporary memory location. Basically, when you want to store data throughout a program, when you want to work with data throughout the program, so to store that data, you use your PC's memory. Use your PC's memory and you use it temporarily. So for the time being the program is running, that memory is of your use, and once your program is closed, that memory is free. That's why we say it is a temporary memory location. So variable is nothing but a temporary memory location. Are we clear with the definition? Are we clear? So while writing program, we require data temporarily to view, to save and everything. That's why we use variables. And variables are nothing but temporary memory location. That's all in your PC. Once, while the program is running, the memory is used, and once the program is cleared, the memory is cleared, right? But now, how to tell the memory that I want to use you temporarily, right? Now the thing is, how can I use my Java programming language to tell the memory that, okay, I want to use a little bit of memory from you to store some kind of data for me for time being? How can I tell? So for that, you create identifiers in your program. Remember one thing, you create identifiers in your program. So basically, if I say, okay, fine, I want to store a number in memory that I'm going to use in my program temporarily. So what I do, I just create an identifier, just like I say, okay, fine, I want to store a number. So I just created a name. I just gave a name num. That's all. It will store. Now, once I write this on my program understands, okay, fine, I'm trying to create a variable. I'm trying to create a temporary memory location. Is it clear with everyone? I just give a name and I can just equal to with some value. That's all. I just give a name to identifier. I just create an identifier and I can just give any value to it, like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. Is it clear with it? Are we clear? So whenever I want to register a memory location, I want to store some data, I create an identifier. As soon as I create an identifier, what my program does, okay, when I run the program, it goes inside my memory and creates a memory location and registers it for my num identifier. Are we clear with this? It goes inside the memory, gets a location, and registers it for my num identifier. So now whatever I try to put in num, it will go in that memory location directly. Right? Are we clear with this? Please everyone, just wait and listen to me properly. I'll explain everything. I know that you people know a little bit about Java, but just please go through the explanation once. This is for everyone, whoever are starting from zero. Right? So are we clear with this at least? Are we clear with this at least? So I create an identifier and I can give any value, and basically I create a memory location. Now the problem is, whenever you register memory location, that memory location wants to know which kind of data are you going to store, so that it can help you in calculation. Remember this thing. Whenever you try to create a variable with an identifier like this, it tries to know, the memory location wants to know which kind of data do you want to store, so that it can compute it and it can help you in calculation. So for that case, you also require something called as data type that you have to define while creating this identifier, while creating the variable. Okay, fine. I want to create a variable with identifier num, okay, and I want to give it a data type so that the memory location can know that what kind of data I'm going to store in the memory location. Are we clear? So now what will happen? As soon as I create num, it will register memory location, and as soon as I give some kind of data type to it, the memory location will know, okay, fine, I want to store this kind of data. Is it clear? That's a good question. Identifier is the name that you give on the program, and variable is the actual memory location that is registered in memory. A lot of people, like everyone in this, commonly, this is only known as variable, but that's just a common saying. Actually, variable is the memory location, and this is the identifier. The thing that defines the variable is basically the identifier, is known as an identifier. Is it clear? Variable is the memory location. This is just an identifier of that variable that is used to access that variable, that memory location. Are we clear with this? So this is the complete trick or syntax of creating a variable. You just give it a name, just give it an identifier, value, you can just give it a value, but the most important thing, you have to give it data type so that memory location can understand what kind of data you want to store in that. Now we're going to see what are the kinds of data that we can use. What are the kinds of data that we can store in memory location, right? So we have something called as int. If I want to store normal numbers, whole numbers, we also have something called as short, that is used for some kind of a very short numbers. Then we also have byte, right? Then we have something called as float. Then we have double. We also have long, and finally we have something called as boolean. Now these are the different data types that are available in Java. These are the different kinds of data types that are available in Java that basically say or identify which kind of data I want to store. So now I can make my num either int or short or float or double or long. Are we cleared with this? So these are the types available in Java. So whenever I'm creating a variable, I have to specify a type, and these are the types available that will tell my memory location, okay, fine, which kind of data I'm going to store. Are we clear with this? Okay, yes, I forgot one. There's one more, that is char. So these are all the basic primitive types that are available in Java. Are we clear with this? Yes, Harpal Singh, don't worry, just wait, I'm explaining everything. I'm explaining, don't worry. String is not a primitive type in Java. I'll explain it, don't worry. Everyone, don't worry. So it basically depends on sizes. For example, if I just want to show you something, so you can just, I'll show you. Wait, I'll just go on internet and search it for you. Primitive types in Java, right? If I search it, we'll see everything. Primitive means the basic types that are available in Java. The basic types, the first basic types that are available in Java. So you can just go on here, like it's a simple example on W3 schools. Fine. I hope somewhere, yeah, you can see the difference. So the difference is between sizes. So just like byte has 1 byte size. So basically it can go from, you can write values from 128 to 127, right? Then you have short, that is of size of 2 bytes. So it basically depends how much amount of number you want to store it in a particular variable, how much amount of data you want to store in a variable. It depends on that. It depends on that, like which kind of data type you will use. So if I just want to like store a age or just some kind of roll number or code, I'll use byte because it will just reserve a small size. If I want to store like values in thousands, I can just use short. Can you see? I can just use short. If I want to store a number in billion, around 2 billion, I'll use int. And if I have a like very large number, like billions and billions, I'll go for long. Are we clear with this? And then you have something called as float. So basically, it comes into role whenever you want to store some kind of decimal value, something like 24.5, 81.2, something like that. Then you can go with float. And now again, you can see float is of 4 bytes. So if you want to store, okay, I'll zoom it a bit, don't worry. Is it visible now? Is it visible now, everyone? I hope it is visible now. Fine. So float is of 4 bytes. That basically means it will let you store the size of int again in billions, but you can use decimal points because it is float. And sometimes you need a very large decimal numbers, like billions point something. Then you can use double for that. Are we clear with this? So float and double are for rational numbers, the numbers with decimal points. And byte, short, int, and long are for whole numbers. Are we clear with this? That negative numbers is basically you can start the data from there, from minus. You can also give minus values. It's by default double. In Java, by default, it's double, Venkat. By default, it's double. And you also have something called as Boolean if you want to store a value between true and false. So if you want to store like something like yes or no, okay, fine, it is there or it is not there, true or false. Then you can have Boolean, that is of only 1 bit. It only stores true or false, right? One byte means 8 bit. You can see, right? You can see it. Here it is there. If I'm using 1 byte, that basically means I can start from minus 128 to 127, not above 127. That's all it means. And for your specification, 1 byte is 8 bits. And now you also have char that is of size 2, and it basically stores values in single quotes, single characters in single quotes. That's all. So short byte for very small numbers, like between like 2 to 3 digits, short for thousands, int for billion, long for a very large data set, float for rational numbers, for decimal points, and double for very large decimal points, that is of like 8 bytes in billions and billions, Boolean only for true and false, and char only for single characters. Are we clear with all the types? Don't worry, we know that I'll explain, don't worry, I'll explain how user can give input, don't worry. But are we clear with this? Are we clear with this, everyone? Are we clear with all the primitive types? Don't worry, Muhammad, Shanaullah, I'll explain. Because there are a lot of ASCII values that are long, Shlok. There are a lot of ASCII values that are pretty big, have 2 symbols in them. That's why we use that. It's not meant for ABC actually. It becomes a string. It's very like it's a good practice to only hold a single character in char. But if you want to check that, you can check that, troubleshoot it. Create a char and start to put it. For a word like apple, you use string. But let's first see all this and then we can move ahead to the next part, that is string. Don't worry. Okay, should we continue? Let's see one by one all of them. Right? Okay. So I feel int, short, byte, and like long are almost same. I'll just print it for you. So I'll just name it an int. I can just make it like 63. And if you want to print a variable, okay, troubleshooting is basically checking for errors, Vishnu. Checking for other problems. Fine. So I have integer num equals to 63. So basically I have an identifier num. That basically means I have a variable named num, which is of type int, and the value is 63. And now if I want to print a variable, remember you don't ever put variable in double quotes. Only string can be in double quotes. Don't ever put variables in double quotes. Remember this thing, please. So now if I want to print num, I can just go on and write num. That's all. So I'm just printing num. So system.out.println num. Now let's save it. So again, Control S and just run it. Let's see what I get. These are the primitive types, right? The basic types. Okay, it's building, it's getting built, don't worry. It'll take a little time. Oh, I just wanted to comment these. Fine, that was the problem. Yeah, I didn't comment these. That was some kind of wrong code that I wrote there. Yes, Ganesh, troubleshooting means fixing the problem, checking for problems and fixing it. Perfect. Fine, can you see it? Can you see my output now? 63 here. Simple, right? Very, very simple. Are we clear with this? Everyone, are we clear with this? At least printing the variable. Now, let's try to store a float value. I can just go on and write 24 by 67, 24.67. Now you can see I am having an error. See what I'm having? I'm having an error. It is saying I'm trying to convert double to float. So I tried to store 24.67, which is an actual normal value, a small value that can be stored in floats. But what is happening? I'm unable to store 24.67 in my float because it is saying that it is double and you're trying to store it in float. It is happening because by default, all the decimal numbers are double. So if you want to store it in float, you have to make sure you have to like say Java, okay, fine, I want this to be treated as float. And for that, just come here and just write F. Now my Java understands that, okay, fine, this 24.67 is basically float. You can write small f or capital F. I basically prefer capital F because it makes it easy, look like easy. That's all. So now I can print it. If I just go on now, if I run it, typecasting is not necessary here, Sakshi, because it is a made feature that we're using right now. It's an inbuilt feature. So run it and see. See my output? It's now 24.6. It's perfect. Are we clear with this? Are we clear with this? Cool. That's perfect. Now remember one thing, all the primitive types, like the arrangement of memory in our PC, like there are a lot of different arrangements of memory. There are different data structures present in memory, right? To Naresh, to show that it is a float, because by default in Java, every decimal number is treated as double. Perfect. Remember one thing, in my memory, there are different kinds of arrangement to store data. Just listen to it. In my PC's memory or in anywhere in the memory, Vinod, I know, but there are a lot of questions coming, right? There are a lot of questions coming. Fine. So in my memory, there are a lot of arrangements for memories, right? So all the primitive types are stored in stack arrangement, or all the primitive types are stored in stack arrangement. That is basically there's a memory arrangement, and inside that, whatever variables I create, they just go in one by one, all above each other. So if I say like I have a variable num, then I have a variable num2, then I have a variable num3. So there's an arrangement of stack. Num1 will go, then num2, then num3. So they just go like one by one, and everyone has a different value, and everyone are like completely independent. So all the primitive variables that I create, primitive type variables, they are stored in stacks. Remember this thing. Yes, there will be no f in output, right? There will be no f. F is a string. It is just to denote that is a float. Because if I get f in output, it will make wrong calculations. Remember one thing, all the primitive types are stored in stack arrangement of the memory. Please never forget this. Fine. Now let's move ahead. Now we have understood variables very clearly. Now we can move ahead. I'll be using all the types in future one by one, so there is no problem. Just remember, this is how we create variables. That's all. This is how we create variables. Remember this thing. Fine. Now let's move ahead. Let's move ahead. Now I'll explain everything. Now remember one thing. This public here is basically an access modifier. In object-oriented programming, there is something called as access modifier or access specifier that specifies So wherever it has been written, it specifies where all I can access that particular thing. Where all I can access that particular thing. For example, if I just go on and create a variable, let's say I just create a variable integer a, right? I just create a variable integer a. So there are a lot of type like access modifiers available in Java. So there is something called as, I'll explain everything. Public. There is something called as private. You also have protected, and finally you have default. These are the 4 access specifiers available in Java: public, private, protected, default, and they specify various levels of access. So where all can I access the data? So for example, if I say that this integer a is public, it basically says I can access this integer a wherever like I want. I can access this integer a out inside the class. I can use this integer a outside the class or inside my whole project. This is what it means, right? Remember, I'll show you how to do this. Don't worry about it. I'll show everything. Don't worry. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's do an experiment now. So I'll remove all this code for now. Now remember one class that we created, employee.java. Now, yes, exactly, part. Yes, I'll explain once more. Now, there are various kind of access modifiers available in Java that basically help you to specify where all can I access data. So let's see by example. So I told you that there are 4, right? In Java, there is something called as public, there is something called as private, and there is something called as protected, and finally there is something called as default. Now let's try to see them in action. So now let's say my public class employee has some kind of data. It has a variable, right? A class can have a variable. So let's say it has something called as integer data. It has a variable. And now let's try to make it public. By default, the access modifier that is available everywhere is default. This is the by default access specifier of everything that you create. Default is the by default access specifier that like comes out of creation. But if you want to give something else, you have to specify it. Default is by default applied to everything. So I made it public. Now let's do one thing. Let's create object of this class, and let's see how to create an object of a class. Please see it. So I just come inside my main function because this is the only function that is called. This employee will do nothing if I don't call it in main function. Remember this thing. As I said, everything is called in main function. So let's see how to create object of a class. Let's just see how to create object of a class. Don't worry, I'll explain. Don't worry, I'll explain. Let's just see first. So to create, like we saw yesterday, right? We have to create a reference for a class. So let's see how to create a reference in Java for a class. So you have to specify the class name, that is employee, and then you can pass any kind of variable here, but it's not a variable, it's an object because it's a reference of class. So it is object. So let's say I say employee E equals, again, if you want this object to get a memory, remember one thing, any variable or object that does not have a memory will not work. Remember this thing, any variable or object that does not have a memory will not work. And objects don't get memory by default. You have to provide memory. For basic variables like integer, float and everything, memory is provided by default. But when you create an object, you have to provide memory explicitly. Remember this thing. So there are 2 things, variables and objects. Variables get memory by default, but for objects, you have to specify, you have to like provide memory to them. Remember this thing. And to do that, you do nothing, you just have something called as new operator. So I just wrote, okay, fine. I'm creating an object of class employee and the object name is E. So employee E equals to new of employee, same class name with a function notation. It basically is a constructor. I'll explain what constructor is in some time in future. Don't worry. But just for now, mug up like this. Okay, fine. I have to write the class name again and with a function notation, a parameter. Sorry, a parameter, like parenthesis. So this is how we create an object. So if you don't write this, this E does not have a memory. E knows that, okay, fine, I'm an object of employee, but it does not have a memory. So to give E a memory so that I can use it, I have to pass this. So this is how you create an object in Java. I'll explain, Manasa, don't worry, I'll explain. Just give me a minute. Let's see once. Are we clear with this? Are we clear with creating object of a class? New keyword, basically, it is an inbuilt keyword. It basically helps you to provide memory, basically helps you to allocate memory. So when you write new somewhere, it gives memory. So I have wrote E and I want a memory for it, right? So I just gave it, okay, fine. I want to give a memory. That's why I wrote new. Okay, fine. Which kind of memory? What kind of data do you want to store? Okay, fine. Employee kind of data, because this E is employee's object, right? Are we clear with this? Fine. As I said, you have something like this, right? Integer A. So when you create a primitive type, like A, so when I say, okay, integer A, so this A variable is created, right? A memory is by default allocated to it because it is a primitive type. It is already available in Java. So a memory is by default allocated for it. Remember, every variable or object to work requires memory. And for primitive types, memory is by default allocated in Java. But when you create an object of your own, you have to use this new keyword to allocate memory. Now we cleared? You have to use this new keyword to allocate memory. So something like that, like if you see it like this, see, this A is of type integer, this E is of type employee. Are we clear with this? This A is of type integer, this E is of type employee. That basically means whatever features integer have, this A will have. Same case, whatever features the employee has, this E will have, because this E is object. Vishnu, primitive is nothing but things that are available by default. Primitive basic, yes, they contain garbage, but Java by default does garbage collection. So assume it like this: A has a data type int that basically says A, okay, fine, I'm a number. In same case, E has a type employee that basically says E, okay, fine, you're an employee. But as I said, that for primitive types, Java allocates memory by default. But for objects, memory is not allocated by default. So for that case, you have to use something called as new keyword. And you have to specify which kind of memory do you want, which kind of data you're going to store. Fine, I'm going to store an employee object, and that's all. Is it clear, everyone? New keyword is used to allocate memory to the object. For integers, booleans, float, and long, memory is allocated by default. They by default get memory. When you create them, they get memory. But for object, you have to use new keyword to say, okay, fine, I want a memory for this object. Is it clear now? So whenever you create object for a class, objects don't get memory by default. You have to provide them memory, and that's why we use new keyword. Okay, are we clear? Can we move ahead now? Okay, now using this E object, now remember one thing, whenever I create object of a class, so all the features that I have in class, all the features, so it can be data, it can be function, all the features that I have in class, this E also have them. So when I create an object of a class, all the features that a class has are passed on to the object. So all that features can be accessed by that object. Yes, you can, Rohan, but there's a different thing about it. Well, I'll definitely explain in some time future. Okay, a good question here is someone asked what is the difference between this employee and this. This employee is basically just saying, okay, fine, this E is of employee type. But this employee here is basically a constructor function which is saying this is the kind of memory that is applied to E. In future, it will be very perfect to you. But right now, just mug up it like this. Okay, fine. This is how you create object. I'm just trying to explain it very clearly, everything. Like a lot of in books and everywhere, it's just written directly and you just mug up. I'm just trying to explain each and every word, whatever is written here. So just try to understand it like this. I'll explain you properly what actually happens. Don't worry about it. Yes, it can take Madhur, but I'll explain. I'm just going step by step. Don't worry. I'm just going step by step, Madhur. We are at the start, right? In JavaScript also, we passed parameters in third or fourth lecture. So let's just go step by step, right? Let's just go step by step. So this is how you create an object for a class. Now this E is the object of employee. So that basically means whatever features this employee will have, this E will also have all that. So now there's only one property this employee have is a data variable. Yes, you can, Shubham. Yes, please, please, please. I'm just saying, let's go step by step. Don't ask future questions. Let's go step by step. So now my employee only has a data variable. That basically means this E also has this data available. And now let's see if I can access that data. So I can just write E dot. Can you see this? I can write E dot data and I can pass anything like 34. See? And now if I apply it, I can also print it. I can just go and write E dot data. See? So I can access E dot data, right? I can access the data variable by using my object E dot data, and I can also print it. Is it clear? Is it clear, everyone? So this is how you access properties. This is how you access variables from a class by using the object. Just create the object and then object dot the variable that you want to access, and you can just give values by equal to, and you can just print it. It's very, very simple. Are we clear with this? Yes, there is a shortcut. I'll show there is a shortcut. Don't worry. Now let's do one thing. Let's run it and see if I can get. I can get my output. Let's just see. So I should get 34 now. Don't worry, Prachi will understand it in some time. Can you see? 34. I think Prachi didn't attend the last lecture, right? If people that are directly joining in will get a little confused because I explained all of this in the last lecture, that you can access anything inside a class using the object. Fine. So listen, again, I'm just explaining. My employee class has a variable named data. So wherever I create object of employee class, I can use that as data variable. Remember this thing. Wherever I create object of employee class, I can use that data variable. Is it fine? If I want, I can just go and create one more object of employee. Employee E1 equals to new of employee. So now this is a different object. Now remember one thing, when you create two objects, this data is created two times. One for the first object and one for the second object. So I can also pass E1.data and I can pass some different value like 45. Something like this. I can do something like this. So whatever is present inside the class, if you create two objects, both will, like, all the features will be created twice for both the objects. If I create 100 objects, all the features inside the class will be created 100 times for all the objects. Remember this thing. This is what I explained yesterday, right? I hope you're clear with this. This is what I explained yesterday. So whatever features I have in class, if I create 100 objects, all the features will be created for each and every object, so that they can use them separately and independently. Is that clear? So I only have one single class employee, which has one single variable data. But if I create two objects, that data is created twice for both the objects. Is that clear, everyone? No, that is not what abstract class means. It's just normal class. Abstract is different. Abstract is different. Please don't get confused and don't build up concepts in between that you know from somewhere else. Just try to understand. I'm just going step by step. Don't worry. Ganesh, this is not the right time to create ad hoc object. Just wait for some time. I'll show you how to create everything. Please, let's just go step by step, please. Fine? Are we clear with this? Yes, we'll cover abstract classes concept. That is very important. Don't worry, Madhur. Right now, you can just take it like this. Don't worry. Okay, I'll just say it once. This employee specifies, okay, fine, this E is an object of employee class, a reference of employee. And this basically allocates memory of employee type. So first employee says, okay, fine, this E is of type employee. And the second one says, okay, I want a memory for this object. And in that memory, I want to store employee. And that's why I wrote this employee. Okay, you're good to go. Now, let's try one thing. So, as I said, when I make anything public, it is available everywhere in the project. But now let's do one thing. Let's make it private. Now let's see. See it here now. You have an error. What it is saying? Data has private access. That basically means you cannot access it. There is an error. So now you understood that whenever you make anything private, that is not accessible outside the class. So public, whenever you make anything public, that is accessible everywhere in the project. When you make something private, that is only accessible inside the class. You cannot access it outside the class. It is only accessible inside the class. You can use it again inside the class, but you cannot access it outside the class. I'm explaining that. And when you make it default, by default, everything is default. But when you make it default, okay, it is not allowed right now. It is basically allowed in functions. But what default actually means is default works for a package. So if say there is like you have 10 packages and a lot of classes in that. So public is available in everywhere, all around the project. Default is only accessible inside a single package. So inside a single folder, like a level of abstraction has been like lessened. Public everywhere, default only inside the package, private only inside the class. And I'll explain protected in some time when we get to some concept. But for now, just remember everything that you create is by default. Is it clear? Public is accessible everywhere. Default only inside a package. So you have a package like com.employee. Whatever classes are inside that package, you can access everything in that. Private only for the class, not outside the class. Are we clear with this? Protected, I will explain in some time. Don't worry. Now you understood what are access specifiers. So based on where you want to give access for what thing, you specify the access specifiers. That's why they are here. Based on what data or what method or what class you want to make accessible in some other project or in some other namespace or in some other package, based on that, you just provide access specifier. So you'll learn the need, you'll understand the need by learning. One by one, when we go session by session, you'll learn why it is required. But now you understood the access points, right? Public in the whole project, default inside a single package, private only inside the class, not outside the class, and protected, I'll explain it in some time, don't worry. Are we clear with this? Yes, should be same. File name and class name in Java should be same. I'll explain protected, don't worry. Right now, I can't say protected because there is a concept of inheritance. The new people will start asking that also. Just wait for some time. I'll explain what is protected, don't worry. When the time comes, everything will be explained. Rashmi, public in all the packages, default in a single package, public all over the project. Like you have 10 packages everywhere in the package. So public everywhere, default only in a package, right? So let's say like there's one package com.employee. If I have one more package like com.employee1, so public will be accessible in both the packages. If it is default, it will be only accessible in single package. Private only inside a class. Remember this thing. Okay, so now you understand what is public. And inside a Java file, always there should be at least one public class. Inside a Java file, there should be one public class and name of that class and the file name should always be the same. Remember this thing. Fine, let's move ahead now. Yes, Arpit, please you can repeat once, like you have just joined right now. So you just repeat it once again, you'll understand everything. Now you understand about this, right? Now you understand what is this. Public class name. Now let's move ahead. Let's try to create a function inside my employee class. Let's try to create a function. Yes, because it is by default, Sai Kumar. So you don't have to write default. Yes, in some time, Vishnu, don't worry. That's why I'm going step by step. Now let's see how to create a function inside a class. So again, as I explained yesterday, you give any name. So I just write do something. So I just give it a name, do something. Again, the notation and curly brackets. So this is how we do it. And let's make this function public. So I have a function named do something and I have made it public so that is accessible everywhere. Now there's one important thing. Whenever in Java, yes, you can create many packages regarding Sarvani, yes. Okay. Now I'm making a function named do something, right? And I want to write some code and I made it public. Now remember one thing, in Java, whenever you create a function, you always have to specify a return type. Just like you specify a data type for a variable, you also have to specify a return type for a function. Remember this thing. Just like you specify a data type for a variable, you also have to specify a return type for a function. And return type is nothing but similar to data type. So that just like that, I can just say int, and that's all. One thing, a function is made for returning something. A function always returns. I'll explain it what it means. Now just listen to it. This is not explained everywhere. A function always returns. Remember this thing. A function always returns, and you always have to specify a return type to a function. Now I have specified int. So I have said, okay, fine. This do something has a return type int. That basically means inside do something, my do something should return some value, return some integer value from it. Right? Remember this thing. So whenever you create a function, you have to specify a return type. And when you specify a return type, you're basically saying, okay, fine, this do something, once it has done its execution, it will return a integer value. If I make it float here, I am basically saying, okay, fine, my do something after its execution, it will return a float value. A function always returns. Remember this thing. Like just like this. See it like this. I have wrote int. Let's say I write some code here. Right? So system dot like code is system dot out dot println. Hello. Now see there is still an error. Can you see it? There is still an error. Missing return statement. So while creating the function, I have returned int. And when I have returned int, I was meaning that, okay, fine, I'll return an integer value from the function. And I'm not returning anything. That's why it is showing me an error. So now at the end of the function, I have to write return any integer number. I can just write 1. It is very helpful. I'll explain how it is helpful. But just now let's understand it like this. Okay, fine. So once I have returned int, I have to return an integer value anyhow. I have to do it. Otherwise, it will give me error. If I write float there, I have to return a float value. If I write char there, I have to return a char value back from the function. So, what if I don't want to return anything? What if I just want to create a function that does something but returns nothing? So in that case, Java has provided you with a return type named void. Java has provided a return type named void. Now, once you write void, that basically means, okay, fine, I don't want to return anything. So in that case, you are not, it is not mandatory or it is not important to write a return statement now. You can just create a normal function that does something and returns nothing. That's all. So whenever you don't want to return something, just write void. But if you want to return something, you can write int or float or everything. Like in a lot of places, it is just written like this. I hope you got the explanation now. The meaning of writing void or int or float. If you don't write, it will be default, Dhaneshwar. If you don't write, it will be default. Right? I said, if you don't write any access modifier, it is by default. So if you don't write, not a problem. Are we cleared with this return type? Yes. If we return a value, it will be displayed in the output. I'll show you how to do that. But just for now, understand, a function always wants to return something. And you have to specify a return type. But if you forcefully don't want to return anything, you can just specify void. That, okay, fine, I just want to return void. That means nothing. Are we cleared with this? Are we cleared, everyone? I hope you understood everything, right? There are a lot of internet coding places where you can just find them. I hope you understood this now. Why void is important. And I hope you understood now why void is written here. I explained, don't worry, Muhammad, I'm just going one by one. So now you know what public means, now you know what void means, and main is just a name. Don't worry about it. And now let's finally understand what static means. Now remember one thing. Whenever you make anything static, static things are made for class. That basically means you don't need to call them by objects. Whenever you create a variable or a function static, you don't have to call them by objects. Just like in here, I created data, but it was not static, right? I created a variable data, but it was not static. And in that case, I was able to use data with my object. In that case, I was able to use this data variable with my object E, right? But if I make it static, see, I can still use it, but now I can access my data variable directly by the class name like this and pass like some value. Now this is what I can do. So I don't need object creation now. Understanding my point? I don't need object creation. So to access anything by class name, you can make that thing static. Are we clear? You don't need to access them by object. But if it is not static, you have to access them by objects only. But if it is static, you can access them by directly class name. You don't need objects to access them. Are we clear with static? Right now, I don't want to make it static. See, if I don't make it static, I'm unable to access it with class name. I'm telling you, don't worry, I'm telling you. See now, my data is not static. That's why if I'm trying to access data by class name, it is giving me error. But if it was static, I was able to access data directly with the class name. Understanding this thing. First, understand this line. If you make anything static, you can access that thing with class name. If you don't make it static, you cannot access it with class name. You have to only access it with object. Are we clear with this? So if you make anything static, you can directly access it by class name. And you can access it by class name because static things are only made for classes. They are not even made for objects. You can access them with object, but they are not made for object. They are made only once. Remember this thing. They are made only once. Now understand it like this. As I said, when I created the variable data, let's remember the explanation that I did earlier. When I created the variable data, right? So when I said if I create 2 objects, I'll have 2 copies of data. If I create 5 objects, I'll have 5 copies of data. If I create 100 objects, I'll have 100 copies of data. But if you make anything static, now if you even create 100 objects, there will be only 1 copy of data available to all the objects. Because it is not made for object, it is only made for class. Understood the point? So if it is not static, it is created multiple times for multiple objects. But if it is static, it is created only once for the class and it is accessible by all the objects. So you can share a data between objects like this. Are you getting my point? It's actually not difficult, Anaga, if you just try to understand it like this. Simple. Okay, last time. If I have a normal variable and if I create 10 objects, that variable is created 10 times. Simple. If I have a normal variable and if I create 10 objects, that variable is created 10 times. But if I make that variable static, so it doesn't matter how many objects I create, it will be only created, that data, that variable will be only created once and it will be available to all the objects. Are you getting my point? It will not be different for all the objects. It will be only a single variable that is available to all the objects. Got my point? And you don't need to call them with objects. You can directly call them with class name. Are we clear with them? Are we clear with this now? Yes, Vishnu, yes, exactly. You can share data. But now let's understand why main is static. Now it's exactly for the same reason. Okay, let's give you some example. Okay, fine, everyone, fine. Let's give you an example. Remember, that's why schools and colleges skip this topic, because it is a tricky to understand. Now let's try to understand. Fine. Now as you can see, when I created data, now just try to understand. When I created data normally, my E has 34 in data and my E1 had 45 in data. Simple. My E had 34 in data and my E1 had 45. Now, if I try to print both of them, just see it now. Both have different values. That basically means there are 2 copies of data available. Now see, let's run it. Simple. Normal variable. E1 has data and E also has data and E1 has data. 2 different copies, 2 different values. Let's see. Let's see once, please see. Let it get run. Fine. You can see it now. 34 and 45. Now let's do one thing. Let's make it static. And now let's see what happens. Now E dot data is 34 and E1 of data is 45. Now let's see. Let's run this. Now I said it is static, so it is only made once. So E of data and E1 of data are basically same because only one data is available. So now at first place I passed 34 in data, but at the second place I overridden that 34 with 45. So inside data there is only 45 because data is only made once and it can only have a single value. So even if I print 2 times, it will only give me single value. I hope now you understood. Let's get it done. Is it understood to everyone now? Okay, a lot of people are getting it. That is amazing. Can you see it now? Because data was only made once for both the objects. So they were having access to only a single variable. So if I give some data from here and give some data from here, it will overridden because only one value can be stored. I hope now it is understood. Amazing. Okay, and for the same case, we have static in main function so that it is only created once and for the class, and there is no object required to call it, so that the JRE can call it easily. That's why main function is always static. So that is, it is only created once and I can call it without the object by using the class name, so that JRE can call it easily. And it is only made once because main function should be only made once. If it gets multiple times, your project will get executed multiple times. That is why main is always static. Now you understood what is public static void main. I was just building things for you, which if I would have explained static earlier, you would have not got it. That's why I was just building step by step for you. No, Ayushi, static is not fixed. Fixed is different. Fixed is something that cannot change. Static values can change. There's a difference between static and constant. Please, there's a difference between static and constant. Remember this thing. Yes, perfect fan, PSPK fan. So static is not fixed. Static is only made once and the value can be changed. But fixed is basically you can make it multiple times, but the value cannot be changed. So it's different. Both are different. Fine. Are we clear with everything now? And basically my main doesn't return anything. That's why you have void here. Can be only one in class? No, I feel not. You can make multiple static functions, not a problem. You can create multiple static functions, not a problem at all. Okay, now let's move ahead. Let's start with normal Java again. Fine. Can we move ahead now? We have 10 to 15 minutes left. Let's try to do it. Yes, I'll explain, Mohammed. I know that. I'll explain. Don't worry. So first we have to reach at some point. Then you will understand this thing very easy. Right now, if I say that this is a command line argument, then you will just get confused. I don't know what it is. I don't know what is command line. I don't know what is argument. That's why just wait for some time. Once we reach at a particular point, I'll explain what is that. Don't worry. Yes, static is a keyword. there's a lot of need, right? Vishnu, there is need. For example, let's say let's for example say value of pi, right? So if there's a value of pi, and if I have 100 objects, if I give a value of pi, the pi value will be created 100 times. But as I know that pi value is always same, so why do I have to create it 100 times for 100 objects? I can just create it one times and give the same value to all the objects. That's why I can make my pi static. So it only holds one memory and it is accessible to 100 objects. It is not created 100 times. Are you getting my point? So if you feel something, there is something that is never going to change, and it is like each an object just wants the same value, you just make it static so that a single point is available everywhere. It saves memory. Simple. Okay, let's move ahead now. Now let's finally see string. Now, as I said, string is a reference type. Again, string is an object. String is not a primitive type. Remember one thing. We are moving ahead. Komal, what was your question? So we can use with class and variable only. You can use with class, you can use with variable, it is used with function. Komal. You can use with all the three things that are available. I don't know that, I don't think there is anything else available. You can use it with function, you can use it with class, you can use it with variables. Like you don't want pi's value to be changed, right? Pi's value is constant, Vishnu. Pi's value is constant, you don't want it to be changed. If you're changing it, that basically means it is wrong. You don't change pi's value. Fine, let's move ahead now. Now I have an employee class which has a variable data. Now let's change it. Okay, I was going to show you the string. Now strings in Java are not primitive type. That basically means they are not basic variables. It is the object. It is the reference type. Remember, objects are reference type. Your integer, float, all these primitive types, they are primitive types, and objects are reference type. And string is an object. It's not a primitive type. So to create a string, again, string is a class available in Java. See, if I just go on write string, see, it is by default available in Java, in java.lang package. See this? It is by default available. So string name. Same that just as I created employee object, I'm creating a string object. So string name equals to new of string. And inside this bracket, you can specify whatever value you want to pass to this name. So I can just go on and write sort. And that's how you create a string. Very, very simple. Right? Very, very simple. Because string is an object. String is a class in Java. And to create a string, you have to create an object. And we know how to create an object, right? We know how to create an object. We already learned that. Class name, then object name that you want to create equals to new of the class name. In the same case, string, the object name equals to new of string. Are we clear with that? Yes, string is not directly data type. String is a class. String is a class. Remember this thing. Now let's do one thing. Let's try to print name. Now you might have get confused, like in Java programs, you might have seen it like this. String name 1 equals directly something like this. It looks like a primitive type, right? It looks like a primitive type now. Now remember one thing, actually when you do this, behind the scenes, this happens. As string is going to be used more often, that's why it is allowed to use strings like this. But behind the scenes, this is what happens. If I directly write this, you people will get confused, like how string is an object, because it looks exactly like primitive type, right? You just do it like this, integer num equals 1, right? They would look exactly same. Num is an integer, has a value 1. Name is a string and has a value sort. So they both look same, and that's why people get confused and they think that integer is also primitive type and string is also primitive type. But you should know, behind the scenes of a string, this goes on, the proper creation of object, something like this. This is what goes behind the scenes. But the people that developed Java made it simpler because they know that string is something that is going to be used very often. Like you'll be using it mostly everywhere. That's why they just shorthanded this whole thing with this. And that's why you have to understand that string is an object. It's not a primitive type. Is it clear? So in this case, this name is basically an object. Are we clear with this? Yes, string is like object creation. Perfect. Are we clear with this? Ramesh, what is your doubt? Can you tell me? You need string to store a sequence of characters, multiple characters, right? Because in char you can only store normal, like single characters. So why you have written original what? Yes, objects are not primitive. Remember this thing, and string is an object. So why have you written original by the way the brackets? I don't understand. Yes, I'll explain, don't worry. You know the difference? So now you'll never get confused because a lot of people get confused between like string is a primitive type. Now remember one thing, as I said that all the primitive types are stored in stack arrangement of the memory. All the objects are stored in heap arrangement of the memory. So heap is just like a box or a cloud where everything is just stored randomly. In stack, everything goes one by one above the other, one above the other. But in heap, everything just goes randomly everywhere, right? So objects are stored in heap. Are you getting my point? Objects are stored in heap and normal variables like primitive types are stored in stack arrangement. Yes, public void do something. Yes, this is how you create it. Simple. Now let's try to print this string. System dot out print ln, and let's do the name. Understand it? Okay, we have to call this function, right? So I have name Saurabh, and I have to call this function. Let's do it. So I have the employee object, and let's call the function. So e dot do something. Okay, that original was nothing. It was just an intelligence given by this IntelliJ editor. That original was nothing. That I didn't wrote. It was an intelligence given by the editor. That's all. It was just showing that how we find this is the original value. That original will not be written everywhere in your program. That was just a reference or understanding given by the IntelliJ editor. That was not related to Java code. Yes, we will continue. Just see the value. Just see the final output and we'll continue tomorrow. Don't worry. Now, as you can see, in my employee class, I have a variable named name, which has a value Saurabh, and it is just printing the name, right? And inside my main class, I create an object of an employee, and I just call that function. And let's see if this is working now. Run this. Are we clear with the output now? Heap is just a memory arrangement, Pallavi. Heap is just a memory arrangement. That's all. Like just like stack, everything goes one by one. Heap is just like a box where everything goes randomly, where everything is getting stored randomly. I'll just show you. Just wait a second. I'll just show you. So I'll open Jamboard. I'll just show you. I'll just show you. Don't worry. Wait. Just wait for a second, everyone. I'll explain everything. So whenever you create primitive types, see it now how they are stored. I don't have a whiteboard. That's why I'm using this. Fine. See. So whenever you create primitive types, they are stored like this. So you have a stack, something like this. See, you have something like this. So if I create 4 variables, they will be stored like this. Or if all of them are primitivized, like integer, float, long, boolean. So let's say you have integer a. Then the next will be stored. Let's say you have float b variable. So they are just stored one above the other in stack, one by one, one by one. That's all. Just like this. So this is how stack is like. This is the memory arrangement of stack. Just goes one by one, one by one. So if I create three primitive variables, they will just go one by one. So first the first variable, then above it the second variable in a sequence. They are stored in a sequence. And if I create a lot of objects, so for them the memory arrangement is like this. Like I have something like this. And let's say if I have three objects, object A, B, and C, so they'll be stored like this, like anywhere in the heap. Object A, anywhere. It doesn't have any sequence. It has references. So object B, it can be anywhere. Like object C. Tomorrow we'll talk a lot like more about them, but just try to understand like this. So this is a stack and this is a heap. Are we clear? Are we clear with this? So yes, stack is like a bucket. Everything goes one by one. And heap is just like a, you can say a ground. You can throw everything. Just everything is stored everywhere. Just like that. Do something is method. Functions are known as method. Functions are method only. So when a function is created inside a class, it is known as method. So function and method are one and the same thing. Don't worry. Function and method are one and the same thing. When it is written normally, they are known as function. But when a function is created inside a class, they are known as methods of the class. That's all. Functions and methods are one and the same thing. Actually, everywhere, PSPK, it's everywhere. Everywhere, whenever you create functions in class, they are known as methods. Yes, structure is primitive because it's a value type. It's not reference. Yes, and if someone is asking like, what is the steps to create functions? It's simple. First, you have like, if I want the syntax is, first you need the access modifier, then the return type, then the name and bracket, and then this. So this is the syntax of creating a function. First, the access modifier, then the return type, then you have the function name, whatever you want to give, parentheses, and then that. Is that clear, everyone? Are we clear with this? Yes, exactly, PSPK, you're perfectly right. And don't worry, guys, I'm going to explain you how stacks and heaps work tomorrow, how everything works, how they get stored in stack and heap, and how they are accessed. I'm going to explain you tomorrow. We don't have a lot of time today. Yes, stack will include primitive, right, Madhur? Yes, yes, yes. You saw it, right? Monica, you saw it. When you create a normal variable, like integer or float or boolean, that is static memory allocation. They are allocated by default. But when you create an object, you're allocating memory, like you can say explicitly. Actually, that's not dynamic. Dynamic will be when you allocate memory on the runtime. And I'll show you like how to do that in some kind of future. Don't worry about it. Yes, tomorrow there is class exactly at 5 p.m. Okay, I'll just give like there is not a lot that we have covered, so I'll just give a very basic assignment to you people. So what I want you people explain line number 12. Okay, it's simple. It was just a syntax of creating a function, Ritika. It was just a syntax of creating a function, just like this. See, the access modifier, the return type, and the function name. It was the syntax. Like this is how you create function. First, you specify the access modifier like public, private, protected, or anything. And then you have the return type like integer, float, or void. And then finally, you have the name of the function. And again, the bracket. Finally, the body. Simple. This is just a syntax of creating a function. Okay, the assignment that I want you people to do for me is, okay, there is one research, like a lot of people might be knowing that. So there is one research that you have to do. And there's one thing. So I want you people, I'll just write it there. Create a class employee. One thing. Inside that, create three variables: name, age, and city. This is what I want to create. Yes, string is a class, Prasanna. String is a class. Name, age, city with some values. You can give any random values to this. And then I want you to create two objects and just, okay, create a function named display. Display to show them. This is what I want you people to do for tomorrow. Create a class employee, take a screenshot or do anything, just remember it. Create a class employee which has three variables: name, age, city. Inside main function, create two objects and display all three of them. So basically there are two kinds of data, right? There are two kinds of data. So there are two objects that basically name, age, and city will be available twice. So two names, two ages, and two cities. Is this a simple assignment, right? And remember one thing, while showing name, I want you to print something like this. So it should just not show name, it should show it like this. The name is, let's say if I stored Saurabh in name, Saurabh. This is how my output should look. This is how my output should look. What quality of the assignment? Please, I don't think everyone will be able to do it. That's why I'm just giving a little simple assignment. Don't worry. In future, everything will be done. Don't worry about it. PHP, don't worry. Right now, it's a very simple assignment because we have not learned much. But don't worry. In some time future, you'll get very good assignments. Don't worry about it. Are we clear with this? So what are you? What the assignment? PSPK fan, what are you asking about? Which quality do you want to increase? Okay, PSPK, got it. Don't worry, you first create it. I'll tell you tomorrow where to upload it. Don't worry. You just first create it. First do it. First try to do it. I'll explain you how to submit it tomorrow. Don't worry about it. First just try to complete it. No, you don't have to take any input from user. Just give them by default values. Today I showed it, right? How to give by default values. So I want to create a class employee which has three variables: name, age, and city, and which also has a display function to display them. Right? And I want two objects to be created inside the main function. So you can call the function two times, and there are two employees actually, right? And whenever I'm printing my name, I want to print it something like this: the name is Saurabh, not only Saurabh. The name is Saurabh. That's great, Gagandeep. It's a very simple assignment, but just I want you people to do it once because we have not learned a lot to do everything. From tomorrow, you'll get better assignments because there are a lot of people who only have very basic knowledge about it and they're just learning it for the first time. For them, it will be really tough. For people who know a little bit, it is really easy. Function must be an employee class. Display function must be an employee class. These are all the features of employee class. Right? An object should be inside the main class. This display function should be inside the employee class. Calling should be in the main class. Yes, you can call display function two times. Not a problem at all, side. Because we create two objects, so you have to call it two times, right? Because we create two objects. Yes, people can leave now. That's okay. I hope you understood everything today. No, not at all. You can use anything. You can use anything. You can use BlueJID, Chirag, not a problem. I'm just saying one more time, you can use any ID, you can use VS Code. Tomorrow I'll also show you how to do all the things without an editor. I'll create this assignment tomorrow and without using any editor. I'll show you how to do without any editor. Don't worry. Use any ID, not a problem. And I'll also show you how to do it without any ID. Don't worry. Hope you people understood everything. Please let me know in the chat. If people understood everything right, just let me know. I hope you learned something new and understood everything. Thank you, Gagandeep. Thank you so much. And please, people who know a little bit of Java, please don't ask the questions about future things, about inheritance or something, because you know now that I will go step by step. So please remember this. I'll only teach step by step. I'll not teach anything first before like learning the basics. So I'll just go step by step so that you can understand everything. So people knowing a little bit of Java already, please don't spam the chats with future questions. Let all the people learn, please. It's just a request. Yeah, just create the assignment. I'll tell you how to submit it tomorrow. Don't worry. Please, this is a very important request that I'm doing. Please, people who know a little bit of Java, don't spam the chat with future questions. I'm just going step by step for everyone. Just Bhishan, just use any editor. Just use any editor. Don't worry. Just complete the assignment, and tomorrow I'll show you how to tomorrow I'll tell you where to upload it. Thank you so much for joining, guys. Thank you so much for joining. I think there will be around 10 sessions, including today's. So let's see. Let's see. Right now it's very easy because we're on easy topics. Let's move ahead to loops, and when I will start creating project, you'll know what we can do. What is the power of Java? So don't worry. That's good, Sanjeeva. That's good. Thank you, Jagdish. Thank you. Thank you, Jagdish. Don't worry. I'll explain how to upload assignments tomorrow. Don't worry. Don't worry. Let's just get some few classes in next two, and then hard things will start, tough things will start, and we'll solve them very easy. So let's see. Then we'll see how much people can do. So don't worry. We have a lot of things to do. Yes, we'll teach R list. I'll teach basic collections like R list, link, and hash table and everything. So don't worry about it. Yes, there is a class tomorrow at 5 p.m. There is a class tomorrow at 5 p.m. Don't worry, I'll inform it right now. Thank you so much for joining, Anuji. Yes, there is a class tomorrow at 5 p.m. This is the assignment vision. Here is the question, right? This is the assignment vision. You can see on the screen. That's why you don't have to come and go. You have to stuck to the lecture. You have to stick it. You have to be in the lecture all the time. Thank you so much, Nitirka. Thank you so much, Nitika. Thank you. So tomorrow we'll learn about stack and heap, how they are stored, how reference type are stored, and then we'll move on to loops and everything. And then we'll also, if we get time, we'll also see how to create array of objects. And in the next lecture, we'll also create the project that we have to create. There is a lot of things that we have to cover. Yes, Ritik, see you tomorrow. Yes. Tomorrow will be very fun because all the very basic and easy things are completed today. So from now, we are getting complex things like objects, array of objects, looping them, storing dynamic values. Thank you, Vaishnavi, for joining. Thank you so much. Tomorrow there is lecture at 5 p.m. Just listen what I'm saying. Tomorrow, yes, you can leave. Yes, you can leave. I have to see a Sai Karthik. I have to ask sir about that. Let's see. If I get any information, I'll inform you tomorrow. Don't worry. Bye-bye, bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye. Yes, you can use Notepad for assignment. Not a problem because even if you use Notepad or anything, it is just a .java file, right? At the end, it is just a .java file. So even if you write in Notepad or Notepad++ or IntelliJ, it's just a .java file. Yes, I'll create the project. Don't worry. I'll create the project for you. I'll just not guide it. I'll create the project for you. Tomorrow there is lecture at 5 p.m. Yes, tomorrow there is a lecture at 5 p.m. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye Vaishnavi. Bye bye. Tomorrow there is a lecture at 5 p.m. Thank you, PM. Thank you so much.
Hello,
No,
sir.
they are two objects, right? They have different values. They will have different sort of. क्या हुआ प्रसाद?
We can end the session, right? I guess.
Yeah, we can end. I was just checking कि कोई doubt नहीं पूछ रहा कुछ उसके लिए assignment के
Okay.
related.
Okay, let me know like once you're done.
हाँ, just एक मिनट दे दो मैं देख रहा हूँ कोई तो पूछा वहाँ पे. Saurav, if you create two objects, there will be two different values because they are not static, right? They will have different values. Amazing, Sarthik. I'm happy for that. Yes, Jyoti. Bye. Yes, you can leave, Bishan. You can leave. Oh, okay. I'll provide some links in the Let's Upgrade post. I'll post helpful material for Java on the Let's. I'll post something on Let's Upgrade today. So just you can just see there. Vishnu, I'll post. That was J Studio, Vishnu. That was J Studio. Mobile, for mobile, you can use J Studio. I'll post all the helpful links and YouTube channels that you can see if you like on the Let's Upgrade post. So you can just see it there. I'll post all the links of the websites where you can learn Java easily. Thank you, Vishen. Thank you so much. It's just all about practice. You can do it. Bye bye, everyone. Have a good day. Bye. Don't worry, just listen to me. Tomorrow there's a lecture at 5 p.m. Tomorrow there's a lecture at 5 p.m. ओके प्रसाद, आई थिंक हम लोग एंड कर सकते हैं अभी.
Okay, sir. I'm ending the stream.